From the shores of Malibu where the waves are pumping, to the Great Wall of China and back to the streets of Las Vegas where the UFC is coming. We are live. This is It's Time Radio, the show we talk about what you think about but may be afraid to voice. Do not worry. We talk about everything on It's Time. Politics, UFC, film, TV, sex, drugs, rock and roll, you name it, we talk about it. It's No Holds Barred Radio. I'm here with my co-host, TJ Santis. And before we get started, TJ, I want everybody to know that this show is sponsored by FanDuel Sportsbook. Today's show is sponsored by FanDuel. This Saturday, it's Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier at UFC 264. And FanDuel is giving new users, get this, TJ, FanDuel is giving new users 30-1 odds on either fighter to win. 30-1 odds. That's incredible. Plus, all customers can bet this fight risk-free. So get in on the action with America's undisputed #1 sportsbook app, FanDuel. Just head to FanDuel.com/buffer to get started. Get with FanDuel today, folks. They are amazing. But before we talk about how amazing FanDuel is, how the week was and everything else, we have somebody amazing for the show. Somebody I've wanted to have on the show for a very, very long time. You all know her. You all see her at the UFC events. None other than Megan Olivi. Megan?
Hey, thanks for having me, Buff.
Oh, very cool to have you on. So good. Oh, you're there. You're in Vegas. You're relaxing. You're in your hotel. And
I'm actually in the office inside the Apex right now. So it's we've kicked off fight week pretty quickly this morning.
I was gonna say, Megan, like you can't really be relaxing. It's fight week. You might look like it's all chill, but like it's got to be the craziest week of the year thus far.
Yeah, there's just a lot of moving parts. And when it's a big show like this, there's additional elements that come in. And so it's really about being able to maintain a schedule. I think that's what also, Bruce can attest to this. When you have so many things going on and you see the organization doing so many different things, it's all about being able to keep that rigid schedule and treat every single thing as the most important thing of your day.
Yeah, I think in broadcasting too, there's some sort of like after a while, after you've put enough time in, there's sort of comfort in that chaos. It just becomes business as usual, I think.
1,000%. It was so funny. I was just telling my husband that this week. I was like, no, I like this. I feel like I perform better in these types of circumstances than maybe a more chilled card. I don't know why that is, but I prefer this type of element for work. It's a really fun atmosphere. I think it brings out the best in all of us. And yeah, it's a great time. And it's cool to feel like you're a part of something special. It makes you feel special as well.
you know what you're saying is, Megan, is you love the pressure. Right?
Absolutely. That's correct. Yeah.
What do they say about pressure? Doesn't it make diamonds? I think
it does.
Exactly.
They say. It's what they say. But who knows? I mean, it all depends who you're giving the diamonds to.
Very true.
Unless it's cubic zirconium. We don't want making cubic zirconium.
Hey, we don't talk about that. We don't talk about that when we do it. Maybe we don't. Never mind. I'm going to be quiet.
So, Megan, with this fight week going on, we have the much anticipated trilogy between Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier. We're all very excited about that. I never pick winners. I always say, may the best man win. May the best woman win. We'll go over your picks a little bit as we go on, but I think just due for this card with fight week, with everything happening, when we think back on individual experiences with Conor McGregor over the years, I want to share with you one experience I had that I've talked about on the show. Conor's evolutionary process to where he is today is obviously very amazing. What he's done with his brand, what he's done with himself, where he's gone from 180, 120 euros a month in welfare or work compensate, whatever the term is, over in Ireland, to making tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, being involved in all the businesses he's in. I always remember the first time we went to Dublin, Ireland, and I saw Conor McGregor. I had no idea who he was. He came up to me at the railing, didn't have a beard, young kid, 19, 20 years old. Hey, Bruce, my name is Conor McGregor. I'm going to be champion someday. You're going to be announcing me. Remember my name. Always blew me away. And then he walked in the octagon maybe 2 years later or whatever it was. And I was just like, wow, this kind of intestinal fortitude, this kind of foresight into his future. And I realized immediately what I say about certain fighters, as I say about interviewers, commentators, analysts like yourself. Some people have the it factor and some people don't. I think you have the it factor, Megan, for what you do. But when I look
thank you.
No, I do. I really do. And I'm a fan. So with Conor, that it factor was evident. And we only see that come along every few years, you know, whether it's a Ronda Rousey, whether it's a Conor McGregor, whether it's a John Jones making the positive and negative choices in his life to maintain that it factor, whatever, as with Conor McGregor. But I'll never forget that day that I met him, and it's just like, wow. You know, and now whenever somebody comes up to me and says that to me, I try to remember their face because you never know if I'm going to see him again.
It's so true. Yeah, it's so true. You know, what's funny is as I was trying to think of like a story like that stood out for me as well. And I remember, do you remember the show we did in Boston? I think it was our first FS1 show, and Boston is such a Irish city. Oh, yeah. And Connor, I think that was his US debut for us. And we, you know, he had his own open workout. There was already quite a bit of hype behind him, but I remember him coming into the hotel lobby and he had like 20 bags from designer stores. And I just remember thinking, he's already spending the money. He hasn't won yet. And, you know, I worry about how our athletes, like, I want to make sure that they're set for life. You know, they're doing this very hard thing and that they're smart with their financial choices. So I'm like, oh my God, he's already spending this money, whatever. And I just remember like, okay, no other fighters buying all of this designer stuff. You know, he was not yet the Conor McGregor that we know of. I believe he fought Max Holloway on that card. And I just remember he kind of had this strut through the hotel. He's wearing sunglasses. He had like 6 people helping him carry bags. And I thought, okay, either this is going to like crash and burn terribly, or it's going to go amazing for him. And certainly it was the latter, but I kind of remember that as like my standout moment of Conor, like, oh my God, nobody's doing the designer thing. Nobody's shopping during fight week in that capacity, and nobody's spending money before they had it, but he did it all and it worked out.
Yeah, that story, Megan, actually underlines, I think, one of the nicknames that sort of gone by the wayside with Conor, that the Mystic Mac moniker, because he seemed to be the only one in the room that knew something that, you know, I'm not going to say that he was this underdog that no one gave any sort of credit to, because we all could see his skill. But the fact that he was doubling down on this sort of success before he actually attained it actually is more of a testament to the fact that he seemed to be the only guy in the room that knew exactly how it was going to play out. And if you want to call, you know, that calling your shot, going up to Buffer, going, look, I'm going to be a big deal. Remember my name. And then, you know, getting to the UFC and living that lifestyle. I mean, he's truly once in a generation type of personality and fighter.
Yeah. And you know what? Bruce is a movie star. Like, I hope people know that what it's like for him at these events. Like, he is just swarmed. He has so many people who are just dying for a second of his attention or a photo with him. And I think it also says a lot about Bruce that he remembers that moment, and that stayed with him. So it says a lot about Conor that he made that sort of impact on a person like Bruce, who sees 1,000 people a day and truly gives his attention and his full heart and capacity in every interaction. But I think it says a lot about both of them. And I just want people to know, like, Bruce is inundated with love from fans, but he doesn't take it for granted. And it's nice to see how kind he is to each person he comes across.
Megan, thank you. Thank you for your kind words. I appreciate it. You know, I come from the school of never forget where you came from, right? And I'm still the same person I've always been. I treat everybody with respect, the way I want to be treated, and I'll never change. It's just the way it is. And no matter how you cut it, Megan, these UFC fans are spending their 69, 79, whatever it is this weekend for the pay-per-view. This is a lot of money to spend 12 times a year. Much less tickets, and to be the incredible fans dedicated to the sport they are. It's one of the reasons I started that site that I started called millions.co, teaching fighters how to brand themselves and athletes how to brand themselves. Because like yourself, I mean, I want to see these fighters make $1 million every time they put their blood, sweat, and tears on the line, or something that's close to that. They deserve it. And anything I can do to help them and support them, I'm going to. You know, when you look at Conor, you see his evolutionary process, and let's take even Dustin Poirier. Look at his evolutionary process. I mean, Dustin Poirier is a fighter who's been around for longer than most fighters could even dream of fighting.
Oh, yes.
You know, and he had a documentary done on him even like 7-8 years ago. And now he's fought for the championship, and he's in a trilogy with the biggest money paydays that he can probably ever dream of coming his way. It was so well deserved and everything else. He's another fighter that we have to look at and say, this guy has actually gotten better in the last couple of years in the latter stages of his career. It's incredible.
Yeah, I think you guys will agree with me. It doesn't matter if you're a fan of Dustin or Conor, you can't deny both of their stories. Like, whoever wins, if you look at what they've gone through and where they've come from, you have to be not necessarily a fan per se, but you have to appreciate their stories and their backgrounds.
Oh, for sure. I mean, they both come from very humble beginnings. And I think if you would have told their, 12-year-old selves what their future would be like, I think it maybe would be hard for them to believe or at least envision getting to that point. And I think they have a lot more in common than maybe they want to admit at this moment in time. And I do think that will probably unite them at some point down the road. But I agree with you. And I think, it's what Bruce touched upon, I think oftentimes gets forgotten is that longevity in this sport is such an accomplishment. Whether you capture gold in that time or not, it doesn't take away from the fact that if you can be at the top of the game for 5, 10, 15 years, that's mind-blowing because people don't do that in other sports.
Right.
And to do that in an individual combat sport, it is an accomplishment that should not be swept under the rug or made light of. It is a massive thing. And Bruce, I mean, from the WEC days, we remember Dustin Poirier walking out there and everybody being like, who's this skinny kid from Louisiana? And, from that blue canvas to where he is now and the biggest paydays of not just his career, but probably some of the biggest paydays in the sport thus far. I think it's really incredible. And again, like an accomplishment that should be praised, regardless of, whether he wins the trilogy or whether he holds, the unified title or whatever it is. That's almost harder.
Well, one thing that you're hitting on, Megan, and I think is sort of forgotten, it's called prize fighting. They obviously fight for prizes. You want the precious metals and gems, but at the end of the day, if a fighter can carve out a legacy, it means that they've had a long run, even if a belt eludes them. Someone you're very close with, obviously, is Joseph Benavidez. Joseph is one of the all-time greats for what he's done in his durability, in his longevity. Yeah. And maybe he doesn't ever capture a UFC belt, but the fact that you can't talk about his division without talking about Joseph Benavidez, fighters would dream to be in that position.
Oh, thank you.
Well, Joseph is a gatekeeper. Absolutely. Everything you said is correct. Joe, gatekeeper, you're in that division. You got to go through Joe.
Right. And that's another moniker that I think sometimes people think is a disparaging remark. But if you are the litmus test of whether or not you can hang, you're pretty damn good. And if you have a win over Joseph Benavidez, it means you're pretty damn good.
Yeah. And I think it's also special. He did it in 2 weight classes and
100%.
Very similar to Dustin Poirier. I mean, we remember that first fight in this trilogy was at 145 and look at the impact they both made in that division. And now we're seeing this one at 155 and they could both potentially fight for the title there. I think when you talk about athletes to be able to say, oh no, they did this division, they did this one, or they're in this long, there's so many additional factors we always need to hold in high regard, I believe.
Yeah, there are chapters. That's what you want. You want chapters to your career. You don't want just a run. And there are a handful of men and women that have been able to, write books. And, obviously Poirier and McGregor are going to add that final chapter to their trilogy. And do you guys feel how big of a deal this is? Because when I got on the ground yesterday here in Vegas, it was palpable. I don't know if it's just because it's the first show in Vegas that is, more normal after the pandemic, but there's an energy here wherever you go.
There's an energy every.
Oh, go ahead, Bruce.
Megan, I'm sorry. No, there's an energy, UFC fight week. There's an energy that's unsurpassed, versus the other fight situations, even coming out of the pandemic the way we are. But, this fight is so big. I mean, you got to really look at the fact too, that I don't know how many Irishmen have made it over with the COVID travel and everything, because usually we have a ton that come into town for Conor McGregor.
Hey, there's a lot of people that had a great grandfather be Irish and they're claiming they're Irish. So trust me, there's plenty of Irish on the ground.
I'm sure there is. I'm sure there's Irish boots all over the place. With that being said, one thing we're not missing, but I want to touch on here, Dustin's fighting for family pride, the want to have the belt around his waist again. Of course, the biggest financial payday of his career, I would assume, will be Saturday. Conor just sold his liquor company, Proper 12, for $600 million, which I hear through the grapevine is about $200 million to his end and constituents, give or take. The millions that he's made elsewhere, the millions he made with Mayweather. So you got to wonder, what is the motivation? And the motivation is personal pride when it comes to Conor. I mean, he doesn't have to fight.
No.
Right? He doesn't even have to fight for a championship. This is an example of a man that has a strong brand coming in that just pre-sells itself and draws the biggest numbers usually for the UFC in every aspect thereof. So you have to ask yourself, what is the motivation? You wake up and you're worth, $300-400 million, whatever the situation, 100 million, 200 million.
Right.
How much motivation do you have to get out of bed and go and get your head beat in for the next 6 hours?
Or just cut weight. You know what I mean? You look at your bank account and be like, really? Do I need to cut weight? Really?
That's probably the hardest part of it.
So let me ask you, Megan, break down the fight. I mean, I'm going to say may the best man win. I can talk on paper, analytically, what I think is going to happen. But can you talk about how you see this fight panning out?
Yeah, I mean, I do the same thing as you, Bruce. I never want to make a prediction because I also find that to be disrespectful in my position because I want to treat everyone equal before and after that fight because being so close to it, being married to an athlete, I also think there's not winners and losers. It's the person who got their hand raised and the person who didn't on that night. And so for this matchup, you know what? This is what I think. I think this is interesting because they're both taking this approach as if they've never fought one another before. Even though that second fight was just 6 months ago, I think it is so intriguing that they're both expecting such a fresh matchup. They are expecting a completely different fighter to be standing across the octagon from them. Certainly, Dustin Poirier is expecting Conor to have a game plan for the leg kicks. He even said that he believes Conor is going to be the one throwing more kicks in this matchup. I think that there's always takedowns as a weapon for Poirier. It'll be interesting to see, should we get to see some grappling from this? I think Conor has a lot more to offer on the canvas than we maybe hear in the narrative. But I do think that this is going to be completely different than those first two matchups. However, that doesn't mean that if they see an opening, they're not going for the kill and we won't see a big left hand or a big right hand land and them try to finish in the first round. But I do believe there's an evolution of their martial arts skills and the fact that they want to mix them up. Dustin even said, let's make this a 5-round war. And I do really believe that this is a fresh approach to a third fight, which is usually not the case. Normally it's okay. We know what they do well those first two times. We're going to prepare as hard as possible. And now we're going to be ready for that specific set of tools they have. I really think that these are two of the best mixed martial arts in the world. And I think they're going to mix it up.
Let me ask both of you this question because I think this is the real big thing for me and why I lean towards Dustin being the favorite. Momentum is a very big thing in this sport. And when you look at, the three fights, the gaps between them, this is a pretty quick turnaround between chapter 2 and chapter 3. The way that the way that the fight ended, I think negates a lot of people's opinion of what Conor did early in the second fight, because Conor had success, but he obviously didn't look, great the way that it ended. Megan, would you say that this fight happening as quickly as it is, does that benefit Dustin or does that benefit Conor?
Well, I mean, traditionally, I would say it would probably benefit who got their hand raised the first time. However, I think we're excluding a huge X factor here, which is the crowd. This is a sold out capacity show here in Las Vegas that is traditionally Conor McGregor's town. It's like his adopted hometown here. And I think we can see all of this in preparation. We can see whatever training they put in or whatever momentum they may have behind them. But when you're in that building and the buzz is absolutely absurd, I think that that's an extra component to this matchup. I truly believe that. I'm not saying it only works in one way because it can also be a huge motivator for the other side. But I do believe that that's also something to strongly take into consideration. There were some fans in Abu Dhabi, I know that, but it was very limited capacity. And I do think that there's something to be said about what is going to be in that building, the energy that we're going to see on Saturday night.
The crowd will be deafening for sure. That's a great point.
The crowd's going to be absolutely deafening. It's going to be, I'll be surprised if you can even hear me when I start announcing, the fighters.
Oh, they can hear you, Buff. I promise.
I'll be roaring extra loud. Trust me. I'm training for this fight like a fighter trains for a fight. I've got a 2-hour session here right after the show.
That's why we love you.
I got to get an announcer weight, Megan. I got to get down there.
I love it.
Got 2 pounds to go, Megan. 2 pounds to go.
I got more than that.
All right. Well, we just have a little card that just came up. One thing we did not discuss that I think we need to discuss about what could be a big factor in this fight, and that is cardio past round 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, here's the question, guys. For Conor, did he gas or did he get beat up in the second fight?
I think
he was damaged.
I think it was damage. I don't think it was cardio. I think he really worked hard on his cardio. He's probably going to work harder now, but I believe it was damage that won that fight. What about you, Megan?
You know, I don't think that either of them are going to allow that to be the determining factor in this fight.
Right.
There are very few things you can control in a fight, and that's traditionally one of them. You can put in the preparation and make sure that, 24 minutes and 30 seconds into a 5-round fight, you still feel as good as you did at minute 1. And I think they're such professionals with so much on the line that is the one thing that they can really make sure they control. And I believe that is going to be pretty even on both sides. I really do. I would be very surprised if we saw one gas out later in the fight. Now, again, taking into consideration damage and things like that, that's a different story. But in just straight cardio, I really believe that they're going to do whatever it takes throughout the preparation for this to ensure that one thing they can control does not fail them.
I agree. And with everything we're saying, I get back to the intro I made with FanDuel. They're giving new users 30-1 odds.
They're both underdogs. They're both huge underdogs at FanDuel.
Huge underdogs. Look at 30-1 odds with all the information we're giving out here. Toss a coin, folks. Toss a coin.
I love that. FanDuel is just absolutely killing it. Speaking of cardio, I got to go put mine to use. I'm actually being told I have to go interview Dustin at this moment.
Thing, Megan, it's a true pleasure to have you on the show.
I love you guys. This is brilliant. I need to just, as much as I can, publicly say how much I admire you and love working with you, Buff. It's truly an honor to watch how you conduct yourself. Thank you for having me on this very special week. And I hope everybody enjoys all of our fight content this week, because we're working hard for it.
It's gonna be awesome. And we're going to title the show this week, Beauty and the Beasts. That's the title.
Let's go.
Wait, who's the beast?
Beasts.
Oh, beast, like plural. Okay. All right. Because we're very different beasts, Buffer. Very different.
Okay. That's why I call it beasts. We know who the beauty is.
All right. All right. Okay. Megan, take care. Have a good show on Saturday.
Bye, guys.
See you
have
soon.
a great one. See ya.
Bye. Thank you.
Truly one of the best in the business.
She is. There's no question.
I haven't been able to talk to her about this, but I'm a broadcasting nerd. I've done this since literally a child. What she has done with the ESPN integration, where she will walk towards the octagon while a fighter is actually making the walk, and she's giving stats about a fighter, and she stops right when the camera can just transition from her to the athlete making the walk. It is something that to me is really groundbreaking. A lot of people it's lost on because you're not watching, fights for that. But she is such a camera presence that you call it the it factor, Bruce. She definitely has it. Yeah,
she's got it. I mean, you're talking about a lady working in a man's world, right?
I mean, 100%. It's broadcasting is a very male dominated industry.
Very male dominated. She's now doing NFL. I mean, she's branched out. And the reason that she's branched out is because she's great at what she does.
Well, that's the thing too. I think people fail to realize, and there are a lot of people like this in mixed martial arts, especially, that there are broadcasters that come from the broadcasting world. There are MMA personalities that become broadcasters. For me, Megan has transcended mixed martial arts, and you mentioned, working in football, and I believe that she could cover any sport in the world that she wants to.
Oh, I think that, I always mention the evolutionary process. Pay attention to the evolutionary process of Megan Olivi. There's more to be done, much more to be done.
Future is bright for sure.
Yeah. So let's go back to the fight card here. Just a quick mention, a couple fights. We got Gilbert Burns and Stephen Thompson going at it.
I mean, that's a main event.
That's a main event. Thompson, one of my favorite fighters to watch fight with this traditional karate style mixed with the mixed martial arts. It's almost like karate mixed martial arts, however you want to put it, but very distinctive style, very Anderson Silva-like at times, very...
If he wins, Bruce, that would be a really interesting matchup with him and Kamaru Usman.
Oh my gosh!
I mean, really interesting.
I got excited just even hearing the possibility thereof.
But I mean, he's got one of the toughest dudes in the division standing in front of him.
Well, you talk about a gatekeeper. Gilbert Burns is a gatekeeper. I mean, please, you have to fight Gilbert Burns. There's no question.
No, yeah. I was, talking to Dean Thomas last week. I was surprised at how complimentary Dean was of Gilbert's, chances of possibly getting back into a title fight with Kamaru Usman. I mean,
he was firm about that.
Yeah, and we'll see, how that plays out coming up on Saturday. But don't get me wrong, you can't say that Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier isn't the fight that everyone is looking forward to on Saturday. But if there is a runner-up, if there is a true co-main event, which obviously this has that tag, it's this. Like this fight has so much on the line for both of these men.
It does, but there's other fights that have a lot on the line here too. Obviously, the co-main event we just talked about. You're absolutely correct in what you said, but then you look at two strikers that are going to go at it that may never wear gold around their belts, but again, people are going to have to go through them in the heavyweight division. And Tui Tuivasa and Greg Hardy going at it.
Oh my God! The roof of T-Mobile is going to get blown off in that one, I think.
The roof of T-Mobile. I wouldn't be surprised if the gate of the octagon breaks open when one of these monsters hits it. I mean, this
in pro wrestling, they used to say that the guys were so big they had to reinforce the ring. They might have to do that to the octagon because when they hit the fence, they might just go right through it.
I have worked shows in my past years where it's happened in cages.
I know.
Not a very pleasant sight. Trust me.
It's a very awkward experience too, because you're like, wait,
awkward.
what are we going to do now? The cage is broken.
And then you've got in the bantamweight, on the main card, you've got Yana Kutsakaya and Irina Aldana, right?
Yeah. Former Invicta FC champion is Yana. Former Invicta title challenger, Irina Aldana. This is a fight that is very interesting because they're similar to one another with their mixed martial arts approaches. But Irina Aldana has a pure scientific approach to boxing that is unparalleled, I think, in the division. She trains with a team in Guadalajara, Team Lobo, which is also where Alexa Grasso is from. Their boxing striking and style for mixed martial arts is truly unique. And Yana's a good striker, but we'll see if she can stand in the pocket and actually box with Irina. And Irina has kicks as well, so it's not just straight hands. But I'm really excited for that fight.
Yeah, Yana's on a bit of a roll, but she's gonna have to get in there and get close and take her down. So
yeah, we'll see. I mean, Yana has a lot of power, but Irene has volume and just an overwhelming sort of boxing output that, I mean, I'm not comfortable making a pick in that one. I think it's that close, but it's going to be one of the better fights of the night for sure.
Absolutely. And then Carlos Condon and Max Griffin is the last preliminary fight before the main card.
Dude, Carlos, it's 2021. Carlos Condon's still going out there and putting on shows and the biggest shows of the year for the UFC, taking on one of the hungriest athletes you'll come across. Max Griffin, a father, I think for the first time going back to February. So he's got a lot of motivation for himself, his family, his legacy. And when you're standing in front of Carlos Condon and you're hungry, this is the biggest fight of Max Griffin's career.
Agreed. And another fight, I can go through all these fights, but one fight on the first batch of prelims, which I don't know if it's on Fight Pass or ESPN, is Jennifer Maia and Jessica Ai.
Right. How is this a prelim? This is a co-main event to any, ESPN Plus card there is. So, yeah.
How about Amari Akhmadov and Brad Tavares on the first four fights?
Credit to Mick Maynard and Sean Shelby for what they've done, because the way that you look at it, and you mentioned the early prelims, the prelims, and the pay-per-view, every single portion of this broadcast has a main event to it. And, obviously Poirier and McGregor is going to be the big draw to the casual audience. But if you invest any time watching this event and any portion of the event, you're going to watch world-class mixed martial arts. And that's something special. Agreed.
Well, hell of a show, hell of a week in Vegas. Lots going on. Very happy the way they're progressing with the COVID protocol. And again, we're in a full arena. Speaking of COVID, as we go through it, some stuff in the news, the COVID thing is changing every day. This Delta variant that's coming out. And I told you about a close friend of mine that was vaccinated, that got infected, and a lot of vaccinated people are getting infected.
It's crazy in Brazil right now. It's crazy.
Pardon me?
It's crazy in Brazil right now.
It's crazy in Brazil. It's crazy in a lot of places. And I hope it doesn't get crazy here again, but I'm just going to say this and not get too COVID crazy right now, but the Pfizer vaccine, they're saying, which my friend had, who got sick again, is not strong against the variant. The Johnson & Johnson now, which I got, they say is strong against the variant, but we may need a booster. It's like, it's changing every day. We're still the guinea pigs walking around. Therefore, I'm still masked.
Yeah,
I'm still masked.
I don't blame you. Coming to Nevada, it was kind of shocking. I mean, you and I live in California where, the mandates have been lifted if you're vaccinated, but still almost, I would say 85 to 90% of the people you see in public are masked up. That is not the case in Nevada.
No.
I'm still, every time I leave my room, I put my mask on just out of habit because it's been normal. Like a year and a half ago, Bruce, I never would have ever thought that I would be reaching for a mask, but like, it's almost like a odd safety blanket. Like it's a comfort thing for me a little bit. I don't know why that is necessarily. Maybe it's just because it's been the way life has been, but it's my default.
Yeah, I'm with you. I was talking to Steve Aoki about some stuff last week, and he wanted me to come by the Omni nightclub, right? And I just don't want to walk in a nightclub.
I mean, I understand it,
I mean, I love standing up and just playing our song. I mean, doing my thing for the crowd, but I can give it up. I don't need
it comes back to you, Bruce. I mean, you've said this since the beginning. You have always, done sort of everything COVID related with your mother in mind. And, that is something that's very important to you. Right. And that sort of is a testament to, you can only do so much. A lot of it is, the responsibilities of others, and you try to do the best you can. And, you still might get it, but, I have no qualms, concerns, umbrage with you, being safe. Safe is always probably the best solution.
Again, and I apologize to the fans. They're going to want to take pictures. It'll be from a distance. And I always say this. And, if I fist bump them walking out, then I'm Purelling as I sit at the table. Anyway, I'm still following all the protocol, but let's just look forward to a great show. I'm glad everybody gets to go see it. Another big sporting event that happened.
Wait a second. You got to stop for a second. Like, we can't do this show for 13 years and not mention it's episode 500 until the halfway.
Yeah.
So Bruce, like, you're not going to get credit for this because there are so many podcasts out there, but there are not many mixed martial art. And this isn't an MMA podcast, really. It's so much more than that, but there aren't many MMA podcasts and combat sports related podcasts that reached this number. And you were one of the early adopters of this, podcast platform. The show, I mean, it's time with Bruce Buffer, but you say constantly it's time radio, because when we started saying it's time podcast, that didn't really mean anything to anybody. That wasn't
knew what a podcast was when we started.
No. And just my hat's off to you, Bruce. You've been a trooper. It's very difficult to make it to episode 100, let alone to make it to that number essentially 5 times over. You've put in the work, Buff. You're a pioneer in this game, and it's been a true honor to sit on this side of the computer screen and, press the buttons with you for 13 years.
Well, thank you, TJ. It's an honor too. And happy anniversary, if you want to call it that, 500. It's an honor to say that. I think back, I was one of the first, I started one of the first mixed martial arts sites.
Right. MaxFighting.com.
Right?
I was a visitor.
You're a visitor, and Josh Gross wrote for me. Tom Gerbasi, who works for the UFC, got the job as a result of that, and then took another step. One of the first podcasts that ever came out, and happy to say, with our ratings, we're in the top 10% of podcasts listened to, around, which, is either low or high, because a lot of podcasts are lucky to even get a few listeners.
Well, again, there are more podcasts than there are people on the planet, it feels like, at this point. That's not true, obviously, but everyone has a podcast, and it's very hard to stand out.
It's very hard to stand out. So, the fact that we do in all that time period, having Joe Rogan on before he even started his podcast.
I think you gave Joe Rogan the idea to start a podcast, to be honest with you.
Might have been checks in the mail, but you know what? It's okay. I mean, he's paved the way for a lot of people, and his podcast is number one at times, if not all the time. So, good for
Joe. You're not as early as me, Buff. You're not as early. I was the third ever MMA podcast, but you're pretty damn early. That one. You're pretty damn early.
Okay, that sounds good. Early to the race.
I would say you're within the first 10 or 15 podcasts, like, honestly, like, and that is like, I'm not sure how many MMA podcasts there are, Bruce, but I can tell you there are at least 2,000, at least.
There's a lot. I get requests every week to be interviewed and such, and I just don't have the time.
Right. But this is one thing, too, that I will say about the It's Time podcast and why I hesitate to call it an MMA podcast. Think about the people that we've had,
the guests we've had in the show.
Yes. I mean, from Brolin to Rogan to
Van Dam to
Pete
Barkley.
Rose, you know what I mean? Like, it just, I obviously have worked in, a combat sports themed heavy broadcasting space, but you have facilitated interviews with people that I never would have dreamed of being able to chat with, like Jean-Claude Van Damme, like hanging out in the studio for an hour and a half. You know what I mean?
More to come.
And is showing kicks with you, in the little prep area. Like it's been an unbelievable run. I hope we make it to, 5,000, but 500 is a pretty good number. And it's been a true honor to be along for the ride.
Thanks, TJ. I appreciate your kind words. And I give it back to you, my friend. Cheers to you, partner. And it's not all about me. It's about us, because we're both doing this and we're both taking the time it needs to be done. And let's get forward a little more time here, going over some news stories. Wow, 500. That's so cool. Joey Chestnut.
Yeah.
Set the record. Nathan's hot dog eating contest.
I interviewed him on my show, Extra Rounds on Fight Pass, and he told me he was going to eat between 76 and 78. And,
well, he hit 76.
Right. He hit that low end.
Low end record.
I asked him how many he could eat if given unlimited time. He said in 45 minutes, if you gave him 45 minutes, he could easily put down 93. And I don't think he can, physically put down 93 in 10 minutes. But I expect Joey Chestnut to probably hit 80 before his career is done.
Well, probably so, because he increases every time. But there was a glitch on ESPN, because when they were showing it, as he got to the record, the 75th hot dog or so, screen froze.
No,
the screen froze and time jumped, and everyone missed him eating the final hot dog.
No,
yeah, it was a little glitch in the thing.
That's terrible.
Hey,
the Fight Pass guys were talking about this too. Like Joey Chestnut needs you to be doing his introduction. Like they do a good job over there. They make a fine spectacle of it. But Joey Chestnut is a slice of Americana, and he needs Buffer bringing him on stage at the Nathan's hot dog eating contest.
One day it may happen. I did have Michael announce it.
Yeah, but we need you, Bruce. Like I love Michael. Don't get me wrong. Michael's the best boxing ring announcer in the business. He's super classy and super refined, but no one brings the energy of Bruce Buffer.
Thank you, TJ. Thank you. Keep buttering my bread. We'll go to 1,000.
There you go. There you go. No, but seriously, Bruce, I think that you would be great for that.
I'm game. I got a big announcement for football.
You've been teasing.
I'm teasing. I'm going to be on the home. I'm almost giving it away.
Don't do it.
I'll be doing the home opener for one of the most popular teams in the league. Not that the league teams are not all popular, and I'll make that announcement once the deal is signed. But get ready.
It's almost time, people. It's almost
time to walk into the NFL, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. And with Megan on the side, would that be great if she was on the sidelines doing the interviewing while I'm on the field? That would be so awesome.
Yeah.
Be so awesome. All right, listen, a little thing that I'm not happy to talk about. It's very tragic, actually, but on July 4th, did you hear about this firework incident with that killed the NHL goaltender?
No.
Okay.
What happened?
Matisse Kavinieks. He's a goaltender for the Columbus Blue Jackets of the NHL.
Yep.
He died Sunday after a fireworks accident, which was at the home of the team's goaltending coach, right?
Okay.
So he's a coach, Manny. He's in the jacuzzi, if I have this correctly. All right.
Right.
And he died from a fireworks mortar blast.
Oh, no.
So what happened is the fireworks mortar shot over the top of the hot tub where he was sitting, right?
Yeah.
And they were lighting off what looked like a 9-shot mortar box. And at one point, the box tipped up the final two mortars. He tried to flee, but the final shot appeared to hit him right in the chest.
See, this is the thing.
Wait, one more second.
Yeah.
The EMTs responded, right? He was taken to the hospital and he was pronounced dead.
I love everyone celebrating, and I don't mind fireworks, but there are these mortar boxes that I'm sorry, like I know in certain places you can buy them, but they are illegal for a reason, because you need to understand so much about what it is that you're doing, that when you're just doing it in the back, like think about this. Why are you shooting mortars around people, period? You know what I mean? Like when we have professional fireworks shows, the stage where that is elevated and isolated and and you have to calculate wind and, something like this, Bruce, where it's a box, you have to calculate, the sort of base to it that box is going to change its weight and its dimensions as it releases these things. I nearly blew up my aunt and uncle's house when I was in high school with one of those mortar fireworks. It was a stupid $150 firework. And I got so excited that when I lit the fuse, I knocked the damn thing over. And I was too afraid to tip it back up. It hit the side of their window when it launched. It didn't break it, thankfully, and ricocheted and blew up in their side yard. But that was the last time I ever launched one of those fireworks. And I was like, you know what? I'll play with sparklers. I'll light the fountain in the driveway, but I'm not a pyrotechnics expert, so I should not be playing with those sorts of things.
No, I mean, we see it in movies, the World War II movies with the mortars, when they, what's the difference? You're firing a propelling object, whether it explodes or it's a bullet or not, that object can kill you, as witness Bruce Lee's son, that was, or rather the actor that was a blank that went into his head.
Right,
Bruce Lee with his, I mean, you're propelling a deadly object.
Even if you are an expert, things go wrong, which I'm not advocating for people to get in trouble, but my neighborhood, Bruce, sounded like a war zone on the 4th. And
down here at the beach, it was unbelievable.
They don't do anything about it. I understand that, police officers and sheriffs have other things to do that are probably more pressing than write tickets for illegal fireworks, but there's no sort of discouragement from getting a little bit crazy when, people in California cross the border into Nevada and buy a bunch of crazy fireworks. There's nothing stopping them. And we hear stories like this. And unfortunately, I think the people that partake in those activities sort of think, oh, well, that will never happen to me. And 99% of them are probably right. But, that 1%, they have an experience like this that is life-changing.
Hey, I almost had it when I was a kid. I would stand on the beach, and one 4th of July, we had a bunch of M80s, and I would light it, let the fuse go down and throw it so it would blow up just to hit the top of the water. I was a couple seconds away from blowing off part of my hand.
Right, of course.
And that was stupid of me. And I admit it, dumb of me. A few other news stories let's go into here before we sign off. James Franco, the actor, are you familiar with him?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Well, he, back in 2014, he opened up a school teaching students acting, right?
Okay.
And he was sued by a bunch of the students, accusing them for putting them in gratuitous and exploitive sexual situations, which
that's
probably
tough.
going over love scenes, whatever.
Right. Because there's a fine line there, right? Like if you are uncomfortable, maybe the scene's not necessarily as gratuitous as you think, but if you're, someone who's, pretty reserved, it's hard. But also too, at the same time, that's not a sort of safe harbor to put people in situations that aren't.
I think it's a thin line because the students are not actually being paid or signed on to do, let's say, a love scene.
Right. I mean, if there's physical contact being made between the students, I think that would be sort of where I would draw the line.
Well, the line was drawn. He settled the lawsuit, $2.235 million.
And I hate to say this, but when you're of someone of stature of James Franco, that may have been a settlement that was reached simply just because going to court would be more money.
Oh, and so, yeah, of course, without a question.
It's low hanging fruit a lot of times. So settlements don't necessarily, at least for me, I don't assign guilt or innocence based on settlements generally.
Yeah, I agree. Now, this new ruling with the NCAA to allow athletes to make money.
Yeah.
I think it's incredible. It's really incredible. And at my site, millions.co, we've had a large amount of NCAA athletes that are signing up at millions.co.
That's unbelievable. That's
right away.
I understand what you're doing and how the mixed martial arts sort of world can benefit from this. But if anybody can benefit from this company, the target demographic and market, in my opinion, would be these collegiate athletes.
Exactly. And to give you another example of the kind of money these athletes can make, Master P's son, Percy Miller, right after the NCAA allowed this, he was one of the first ones to sign a sponsorship deal, $2 million deal. He got $2 million.
Wow. Unbelievable. You know what I actually hope, Bruce? I hope that the ability to make that money will sort of change the landscape of, say, college basketball, where if you're a really talented college basketball player, you only play for a year, which these teams don't have a lot of continuity from one year to the next. When they say you're a repeating national basketball champion team, the personnel is completely different. I actually hope that this will maybe allow some of these athletes to stay in college a bit longer, get that education, and not rush it to the professional level, quicker than maybe they should be or need to.
Well, it's like we touched on earlier with Megan and Connor, it's the taste of money. Let's see what happens when they get the taste of money. You never know. You might see people doing the opposite, where they decide to leave. They've tasted the money. They want more money. But
think about this. I remember Melo Ball. He's a basketball player. Like he was playing in high school in the city that I lived in Chino Hills. There would be nothing stopping him from doing something like this, with his family, right? Like if he has a parent or guardian, he already had a brand, I'm sure. I mean, granted, LeVar Ball was already pushing the big baller brand, but is someone in those similar shoes that doesn't have a father that's pushing a brand for them. I mean, I'm sure you would work with any level athlete that has that ability to draw.
Oh, of course, that's what Millions.co is all about, and it's doing great by them. It's awesome. Check it out, guys. That's my show for the day right there.
The website looks amazing, by the way. It's a great looking website.
I'm just proud of it. I mean, I don't want to hear people say, "Oh, you're shilling, you're making money, you're pitch." No.
Well, you're a businessman, Bruce. I mean, you're a businessman. You're always, pumping your projects.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the name of the game. Do you expect people to show up at your door, or do you tell people what's happening?
Bruce, I'm a broadcaster. I already talked about my show on Fight Pass in this show. It's all part of what your duties are. You know what I mean? So
anybody says that I'm shilling or doing too much, they obviously have never sold anything or
And had a business. You know what they don't have? They do not have a puncher's chance, Bruce. They do not have a puncher's chance.
All the answers and none of the money. I got it.
Show me that bottle, Buffer. This is we call this a segue in the business.
That's right. Puncher's chance. Dustin Poirier, Conor McGregor, puncher's chance. There we go. All good. Listen, here's something really interesting.
Yeah.
4th of July was last weekend.
Correct.
All right. They actually, a couple actually found a copy of the Declaration of Independence in an attic.
Get out of here.
In an attic in Scotland. Okay.
But was it the one we shipped to the king? Like
one of the few copies of the Declaration of Independence was found in an attic in Scotland. It was just auctioned off.
How much?
There were only 201 copies made, but only 48 are known to exist.
How much?
Take a guess.
See, my problem is this going to be worth less than a friggin', rookie card of Tom Brady or something? I don't know. I'll say $2 million.
$4,420,000.
Okay, that's good. I mean, that's a good amount of number. Yeah, I like that number. That's good. That's good.
Isn't it interesting that right around 4th of July at the Declaration of Independence?
It's crazy how that works. But I mean, my mother was like a huge garage sailor, and Bruce, she hasn't found necessarily something like that, but she would go to the garage sales and would find these bottles, like old Dr. Pepper bottles that you think are just trash. They're worth a ton of money.
Well, another thing that's going out at expected for auction, Oscars, past Oscars, the film Oscars people win.
Yeah.
We all know King Kong, but there were a couple spin-off movies of King Kong. One of them was called Mighty Joe Young. I don't know.
I remember this. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the 1949 Oscar for Mighty Joe Young, right? It won the trophy for best special effects. It won, which was excellent. It still stands today. Even the original King Kong is very cool to watch today.
When you put yourself in the mindset of what they were working with, it's out of this world.
Incredible. I think it was Harry Haushausen. I forget his name correctly. That did that. He would literally make the sculptures, film it, move it, film it, move it, film it, move it, film it. It's just amazing. Anyway, that's expected to fetch $500,000. That Oscar.
I mean, it should. That's a piece of memorabilia that is one of a kind. Yeah.
Yeah, without question. All really cool. All right, TJ. Listen, I got to get ready for fight week. I got a lot of stuff going on here.
I know you're so busy. We're not even going to hang out. We're in the same city. Well, we technically live in the same city.
I feel bad because I'm getting nothing but calls daily. Hey, I'm in Vegas. Hey, I'm in Vegas. Hey, I'm in Vegas.
Bruce, I'm the same way. I'm not even nearly as popular as you. And apparently everyone I know and their mother's coming to Vegas this week.
It's crazy. And popular is just a term of endearment. Perception is reality. You're TJ DeSantis. I'm Bruce Buffer. Let's leave it at that.
That is true. That is true. I hope to at some point at least see you in a hallway somewhere.
I'll be around with a mask.
Of course you will. Of course you will.
It's hard for me to walk around Vegas on fight week, but you know what? Be there with a friend, and we're gonna have a good time.
I get it. I've got this official Howler Head viewing party going on at the MGM Grand. Pearl Gonzalez and I are going to be there doing our show. I really would love for you to come there, but there's no way you're going to make it across the street in any sort of timely manner. But like I said, hopefully I see you.
Walk across the street Saturday night.
What's that?
I wouldn't be able to walk across.
No, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So, I mean, I'd send a car for you or something, but you know, it's all right.
People listening understand what I mean by that. It's not an egotistical statement I'm making.
No, it's true. It's true. It's true. No, I mean, that's a thing too, Bruce. I think people fail to realize what it is like to be the sort of celebrity level that you are. You know, when you're in Southern California, you can live a pretty easy, free life, but you cannot live that life fight week in the fight capital of the world. There's no way.
Tough one. A very enjoyable one. I'm going to be roaring like crazy. I can't wait to get in the octagon, and let's just have one hell of a night. It's going to be awesome. All right, TJ, let's sign off.
Yeah. Like I said, everyone, please check out, if you're in Las Vegas and maybe you can't get into T-Mobile, you can come hang out with Pearl Gonzalez and I. We'll be over at the MGM Grand for the Howler Head viewing party, doing our show Extra Rounds, which if you can't be in the building and still want to check out the show, you can watch over on UFC Fight Pass. I think I'm going to be hitting the strip on Thursday or Friday with Chase Hooper, doing some stuff as well. So if you're in Vegas and you see me, say hello. I'm the guy that's pasty, wearing glasses. I look like this. Would love to say hello. And if you're a fan of It's Time, let us know.
Sounds good. Well, you heard it, folks. TJ will be at a strip club when?
I've never been to a strip club, Bob.
Oh, you mean the strip? Okay.
Yeah, the strip.
Well, if you've never been to a strip club and you want your first time, Vegas is the place to go.
I mean, maybe I'm not going with anyone other than you. So, and that doesn't sound like you're going anytime soon. So I'm not going.
I don't go to strip clubs. Not that I never have in my life. Trust me.
Right. Well, I mean, I think never mind. I was going to say maybe the strip club comes to you, but we'll save that conversation for another day.
No comment. All good. Actually, I went with a friend who took me some 10 years or so ago. And when I was younger, I used to frequent once in a while. I used to take my old salesman to lunch or whatever.
Right. Yeah, our mutual buddy John always wanted me to go, and I'm just like, he's that guy. He's that guy.
Once I saw a camera phone come out, I was done.
Oh no, that's not a place you want to be with camera phones.
But all kidding aside, everybody enjoy Vegas. Whether you're going to the clubs, whether you're going to the dance clubs, whether you're going anywhere, it's a city that has everything for everybody. And of course, now this weekend has the UFC, Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier, and we will see you from the Octagon. TJ. Happy anniversary, 500 shows.
500, man. 500. Unbelievable. I'd be lying if I said I thought we'd make it to 300. So 500, something special.
That's very cool to have Megan share that moment with us. All right, TJ, I will see you hopefully in Vegas, at least to say hi. I will see everybody else from the Octagon. All I can say is, everybody, thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. 500 shows is a milestone for us. And please subscribe to our show on YouTube.
Let's make plans. Let's figure out a time. I'm vaccinated. I will get a test. I'll come to Casa de Buffer. Maybe we'll get Brian there. I'll bring this Foot Locker of a shit ton of cards, and we'll open it up and realize that it's only worth 75 cents. But I think that would be a fun show.
Done. Just name the day. Name the time. Let's get it done. Let's stop talking about it and let's do it.
I'm waiting for Brian to find something that's worth $4 million in his collection, because I see his photos that he's posting all the time. This dude is crazy.
It's incredible. It really is.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Collector talk, news talk, UFC talk, Megan talk, you name it. We talk about
not just an MMA show, Buff.
We're lifestyles.
That's right.
Lifestyle show with MMA injected.
That's right.
Good. All right, everybody. Set your goals. Write them down. Learn about them. So when you step on that path, you can be the best you can be. And by being the best you can be, then you're winning. And that's what we're all about on It's Time Radio. I will see you Saturday night from the Octagon in Las Vegas for UFC 264. Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier, and a bunch of other fine fights. What a night of action this will be. And I am ready to roar. King and Bay is putting together, well, actually, I'm picking it up today, my new tuxedo for the evening.
Ooh.
I can't wait to see it.
Excited.
I'm excited too. All right. Big cheers, no fears, everybody. Enjoy your week. See you Saturday from the Octagon. Buffer out. TJ, happy 500th anniversary.
See you, Buff.